Hey, welcome to the Monday Night Bourbon Burner series where I cook things using bourbon. This week, lamb with bourbon shiitake mushrooms on top. This may take a while, so let's just get right to it. I'm going to take you to the kitchen right after this. All right, welcome to the Bourbon Bounty Kitchen. We're going to cook lamb today. Now, I did not marinate this lamb in bourbon. So there's a difference between lamb and mutton. Mutton is just older. So I want to keep this very simple on the lamb because it does not have a strong gamey flavor when it's a young lamb. And these are young lamb chops. If you get a mutton chop, then you can do other things to it because it will be a stronger, harsher flavor. But I want to protect that slight gaminess to the lamb. And so all I'm doing here is I have a little bit of olive oil and a quarter of a stick of butter. And I'm going to turn this burner on high just for a little bit till that butter starts melting. Once this starts melting down, I'm going to put my rosemary, and we grow rosemary, so I have a sprig of rosemary here I'm going to throw in and let the oils come out. I don't chop the rosemary up and sprinkle it over the lamb because all the flavor is going to come out in that heat anyway. And I have a garlic clove over here already minced up. I'm going to throw that in there. I'm going to sear this lamb, get it to the correct doneness, and then I'm going to pull it off, and then I will deglaze the pan with my bourbon, add shiitake mushrooms, season it up from there. But I will be right back as soon as this pan gets hot, and I'll show you the steps. All right. I don't know if I mentioned before, but the reason I put a little bit of olive oil in there before I put the butter in is the olive oil prevents the milk fats from burning in the butter. So I'm going to throw my garlic sprig in. You can hear it start to sizzle. I did back that heat off to about a 7 on my burner here. Before I put these lamb chops in, let me get a little fork here, and I'm going to let this rosemary cook just a little bit to infuse the flavor in this oil and butter. Flip it over. The oils are coming out in that rosemary right now, and I can smell it all through the air. And this fresh rosemary like this, it can't be beat. So let me start adding these chops. And again, this is just salt and butter, fresh cracked pepper, salt and pepper, fresh cracked pepper, and actually fresh ground sea salt. So I'm going to put these in here, get my rosemary out of the way so they can make good contact with the bottom of the pan. That one's not going to take as long as those. It's a little thinner. All right. I want to get good surface contact because I want to get a good sear on this lamb. There we go. All right, I'm going to wait until I flip it, and then I'm going to add my garlic, but that garlic flavor will come out quick. But we'll get to that. We're going to let these cook for just a few minutes, and then we'll get into that part. All right, I've thrown my garlic in. I'm about ready to flip these things. The reason I didn't add the garlic is because it will burn if it stays in too long. So you can see I'm flipping them over now. I've got a good sear starting on that side. And again, if you can't see well, you can scroll with the mouse if you're on a computer, or tilt your phone, or if you have VR visors, it looks like you're standing in my kitchen. All right, so we're going to let these cook on this side, and I'm going to turn my heat back up to about an 8. We'll let these go for a few more minutes, and I'll be right back with you. All right, these things are starting to pop pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and flip them back over again. The garlic is starting to get pretty brown. And if you want, you can tilt these up on their edges because they are pretty thick. And you can get a little sear around the bone. I might do that before I take them up. They're pretty red at the ends. I do not want to overcook these. You can eat lamb rare. And I like mine between rare and medium rare. The flavors stay there, they don't dry out, and they're almost perfect. So I don't want my garlic to overdo, so I'm going to tilt these up, get a little scorch on the end, let some of that blood cook out just a little, just so it's more appealing on the plate. All right. But I do want these to retain a red color to the meat. All right, I have, I'm going to remove this from the burner right quick. We're starting to get a little smoke. I'm going to turn this off. I've taken my lamb off. They're resting on the plate. So now I'm going to add my shiitake mushrooms to the butter that was in there. I also took out the garlic because it was going to start burning, and that's going to add a bitterness. But there's not a lot of dark burnt flavor here. So let me add the mushrooms before this starts smoking again. All right. And this is about a cup, maybe slightly less than a cup of chopped shiitake mushrooms. Very delicate flavor to the shiitakes. I just mainly want them to add texture and a little earthy flavor to the deglaze. So I'm going to let these sweat down before I deglaze the pan with the bourbon. And while these are doing that, with that rosemary, the other thing I like to add to this is a little dry thyme. And thyme is part of the mint family, so you don't want too much, just a little sprinkle around on there. But it does add a good earthy tone, and it adds a little spice kick to it, but it goes really, really well with the oils from that rosemary and the lamb. So let me toss these around. Now we're to the part that I don't know if it's going to work or not, okay? We're to the part where I add the bourbon. And I usually use Chianti or some kind of wine, but we're going to try it with bourbon. Again, I like to use Benchmark. It's $10 a bottle with some really good bourbon notes to it that stands up. I'm going to add a couple of, maybe a shot and a half, maybe 2 ounces. It's not an exact thing. I'm going to let it cook down. I'm going to let this reduce. Man, that has an incredible aroma to it. All right, guys, this is reduced down. We have now bourbon shiitake mushrooms with thyme, rosemary, and garlic butter that's going to go with these lamb chops. This is what we're going to be trying for the bourbon. I don't have a control because, you know, it is what it is. But I'll meet you in the studio in just a moment. All right, here we are. We have our seared lamb with pepper, salt, rosemary infused into and garlic in the butter that we braised them in. Going to cut a little piece here where we can see nice and rare toward the middle, but you know, got the good outside edge. First, I'm going to try it without the mushrooms. Okay. I love lamb. Love it. Now I'm just going to try the taste of the mushrooms here. I don't want these videos to run long. I want to see if this was successful. Absolutely. Oh yeah, that was really, really successful. Okay, I'm getting a really good earthy flavor out of those mushrooms. Again, shiitake mushrooms are very light. They don't have a lot of strong flavor to them, but they add that texture that you kind of want with that thyme and the rosemary and all the other earthiness. Bam, it complements the flavor. And again, these are young lamb chops, so it's not mutton. That would be a much stronger flavor. And I would probably do something a little harsher with it than this. But I want to keep the flavors very, very light because I want that gaminess to come out. Wow, that is fantastic. All right, guys. So deglazing with bourbon works just as well, if not better. To me, this actually looks better than when I deglaze with red wine. It gives it like a burgundy sticky flavor or visual. And this just looks clean and crisp, but you still get the same, you know, the little alcohol kick, but you get those deep bourbon notes in there with the vanilla. I think the vanilla and caramels of the bourbon and the fruitiness of the bourbon helps contrast some of those earthy tones that are in the seasonings, the rosemary, the thyme. And again, thyme is part of the mint family, but I like dried thyme in this recipe instead of fresh. If you use fresh thyme, yeah, you're going to get a bolder flavor, but you will also get a little more mint flavor to it. And so I wanted to keep that subdued. But this is my recipe, and I will post it in the comments down below. But as always, please like and subscribe. Hit the bell down there for notifications, and I promise I'll keep making you these videos.